Okay, thank you. We are going to start. We are going to start our seminar, our events. First of all, let me thank the ambassador Giorgio Novello, ambassador of the Italian Republic in Netherlands, in the Kingdom of Netherlands. Thank you for joining us in this seminar. I thank also Stefano Besseghini, chairman of our regulatory authority, energy, water, and much more in our country. Thank you, Mr. Chairman, for joining us online. We know that you have commitments this morning, so yes. Thank you. And I would also like to thank Huda, Director General, Huda Benjanet, Director General of the Mediterranean Organization for Energy and Climate, that is partnering with us in this initiative, that is an energy transition checklist exercise that we have run last year. Last thing, we have awarded from World Energy Council Global on Sunday. We have been awarded a prize for this initiative because it's one of the main initiatives that in 2024 have engaged many member committees in a region that is very agile and very diverse in promoting the energy dialogue and energy transition. So we start this meeting also with an award on this initiative, and I hope that this is also only the beginning of a dialogue that will go on in the next year, enlarging also the inclusion of other member committees around the Mediterranean area. So I give the floor to the Ambassador Novello, and then to the Chairman Besseghini for the opening. Thank you. Yeah, please, the slides, please. Okay.
Thank you for giving me the floor, and good morning. Good morning, everyone, and also to my colleagues who join me today. I know that when you are ready and willing to listen to institutional greetings, respect two things. First one, that the institutional greetings are short, so that you can go on with the real work. And second, that you expect some platitudes. So I can promise you that I'll be short. I asked my Chief of Cabinet, Lorenzo Armacora, to keep my remarks within the 5-6 minutes. And second, I'll try not to tell too many platitudes. I'll try to share with you some feelings. In particular, I would like to share with you some comments on 3 points. Point number 1, my experience. Point number 2, my feelings about the WEC Med Energy Transition Checklist report, and then a couple, actually 3 insights into the future. So point number 1, the favorite subject of everyone is their own life and their own experience. It is also so for me. So I'll take the liberty of sharing a little bit of my professional experiences, because I'm absolutely normal diplomat who joined the Foreign Service, the Italian Foreign Service, quite a few years ago. Spent my life in different fascinating countries. And looking back to the past, I realize now that at least for the last 15 years, I was personally very heavily involved with energy transition, environmental issues. Just to be very concrete, some 12 years ago, I was the diplomatic advisor to our Minister for Foreign Trade and for Economic Development. And we are all very busy with the TAP pipeline, the gas pipeline connecting Turkey, and through Turkey, the Shah Deniz gas field in Azerbaijan to Greece, Albania, and then southern Italy. Seemed at the time to be quite a visionary endeavor. Now it's up and running, and this pipeline is carrying 10 billion cubic meters of gas to Europe, with the possibility of doubling it by 2027. And as you know, gas is an important commodity in the transition towards a carbon-free industry. Then, after leaving my work as diplomatic advisor in the Italian government, I moved to the private sector, and I worked with Avio. Avio is an Italian company producing rockets to put satellites in orbit. This has also something to see with energy. Of course, we need a lot of energy to produce rockets, to produce satellites, and then to put them in orbit. There is an incredible transition.
All sessions are starting now. Please make your way back to the session rooms.
Yeah, we are bang on time. So transition from solid to liquid propulsion, and Avio and other space companies are working now on very new innovative engines with methane and liquid oxygen, LOX engines. I asked my assistant to turn my page. Then I went to Norway. Norway had two beautiful experiences. One, the ENI, the Goliath oil field well beyond the Arctic Circle, with a lot of problems from the one point of view, and with very advanced technology for the protection of the environment of the other, and a very long and fruitful cooperation with Edison, some colleagues of which I'm meeting today. Same time, I was ambassador to Iceland, geothermal energy. As you may know, as you may remember, Iceland has the greatest per capita production of geothermal energy, but the largest producer of geothermal energy and the initiator of it all was and is Italy. Then here to the Netherlands. A few days ago, we witnessed a shift of paradigm, a complete revolution, the transition of the Netherlands from gas exporting country to a gas importing country. And that really means a lot. So you see, in the life of a normal diplomat like me, energy was at the forefront. It has been so in my activity for 15 years. Now, point number 2, about your incredibly interesting energy transition checklist. I read the summary with extreme attention. Congratulations. I would like to highlight 3 points which definitely resonated with me. Point number 1, the complementarity between the contribution of the WEC Med and the Organisation Méditerranéenne de l'Énergie et du Climat. As I have the pleasure of telling to the distinguished representative of WEC, the first, the WEC Med part is more analytical, and the second is more visionary. So they complement perfectly with one another. Second, I loved the trilemma analysis. It's a tool, analytical instrument, like all tools, of course. It cannot capture the whole reality, but it is a very useful instrument to enable us to grasp the trends and the evolution, and above all, the interdependence between the said evolutions. And then what I also liked and found refreshing is the resilience you identified, the resilience of the system, despite the international tensions, the climatic problems, political uncertainty, and so on. For instance, I took note with pleasure that the countries of the northern Mediterranean have improved their energy security from 58 to 64 points in very difficult times. Regarding OMEC, 1 point is very important to me, is point number 7 of the 9th they listed. Among the priorities is ensuring socio-economic acceptability of deep transformation. Very synthetic, very short phrase, speaks volumes. We are confronted with a major shift, and as a good friend of mine put it, we are facing again a Schumpeterian destruction. Some will lose, some will gain. We should ensure that as few as possible we lose, as many as possible will benefit from this deep transformation. I'm asking Lorenzo if I have a few minutes more. Yes? Okay. For the future. Who am I to tell about the future? Of course, but nevertheless, I dare say something. At least 3 points. Point number 1. We talk today about the Mediterranean. Yes, it's a crucial region. It's very important historically, politically, geopolitically, from every point of view. But our work on the Mediterranean is easily usable, transplantable in other areas as well, even in areas which apparently have little or nothing to do with the Mediterranean. For instance, while working in Norway, I really enjoyed with my colleagues, also with the colleagues of the Arctic Circle in, Arctic Council in Tromsø, in the northern part of Norway, to make comparisons between the Mediterranean and the Arctic Ocean or Arctic Sea. Think of that. Yes, of course, climate is different. One is freezing cold, the other one is relatively warm, and so on and so forth. But both the Arctic Ocean or Arctic Sea and the Mediterranean share these characteristics. They have a lot of offshore energy resources, gas and oil. They are both environmentally very fragile environments. The coastal countries have very different political structures. Think of the Arctic Ocean with Russia on the one side, the United States on the other, and they face one another at the distance of maybe 20 miles between Alaska and Kamchatka. They are both facing high geopolitical risks. Both feature soft law but functioning international organizations. Arctic Council on the one side, the Mediterranean Union on the other side. Both facing problems concerning navigation, and both show a high degree of technological commitment. So your work for the Mediterranean is also very useful for many other parts of the world, well beyond the Mediterranean. Point number 2, hydrogen. Italy, for one, is very committed to hydrogen. So is Holland, so are the Netherlands. There will soon be a hydrogen summit in Rotterdam, again in this city. I think our Dutch friends could comment, for instance, on the region of North Holland having obtained the European status of hydrogen valley. But Italy, my country, is also strongly committed to the development of green or renewable hydrogen, as Dr. Palmisano was telling me before. Just to quote a figure, in our National Recovery and Resilience Plan, we committed 2.6 billion for renewable and green hydrogen in 5 investment areas. Lizzie, can you kindly? Okay. 1 minute more. Okay. I would like to mention in particular the so-called South H2 Corridor project, which aims at building a hydrogen transport infrastructure over 3,300 kilometers connecting southern Germany, Austria, and Italy as far as Sicily, using 75% of structures which already exist. Coming to my close very, very quickly. Point number 3, risks. It's not risk-free. And I would pay tribute to my Dutch friends. A few months ago, they organized a beautiful meeting with the Minister of Energy and Environment of the Netherlands, Jetten, precisely devoted to risk analysis with the slogan that no activity is completely risk-free. It's about risk management. Now, 2 sentences more. One devoted to the Mattei Plan. It's an initiative of the Italian government, launched this year with the participation of 46 African countries. Italy committed 5.5 billion euro to this sort of partnership on equal terms between Italy and our African partners. And of course, energy is one of the key tenets of this initiative. And finally, really finally, I would like to mention to you the Big Science Forum 2024, which is a business-oriented congress focused on high technology and innovation, aiming at creating bridges between research, infrastructure, and industry in Europe, with 500 organizations, 30 countries, 1,000 delegates. It will take place in Trieste, which is the largest Italian port, in northeastern Italy. It will take place in October, and I really would love a possible participation of WEC and OMEC in this forum, and I'd be very ready and willing to facilitate and talk about that. So what you told you are things that you know much better than I do, except maybe the Big Science Forum in Trieste. But I just wanted to tell you how delighted I'm going to be here today, to listen for you, to learn for you, and try to use your inputs in my daily work as Italian representative in the Netherlands, and also in the 120 organizations based in this country. With a word of thanks to my colleagues, to Pina Alivernini, the head of our commercial office, to our solicitor, Eleonora Ghini, to my chief of cabinet, Lorenzo Ermacora, and to my PA, Rizzi Andong. Thanks again for your patience.
Thank you. Thank you, Ambassador Novello. And thank to the Italian Embassy also for engaging on the World Energy Congress, because I know that there will be also the participation tomorrow of representatives during the World Energy Congress. And thank you very much for having also connected some dots between initiatives that Italy delivered at European level, and also in other areas that we have national committees as World Energy Council. For example, in the northern part of Europe, we have colleagues that are working on energy trilemma of that region. We are looking forward to also develop an energy trilemma analysis on the Mediterranean region, and we will deliver you our results together with the OMEC. Now, before to give the floor to Chairman Besseghini, I give the floor for a welcome and introduction also to Huda Benjanet. And thank you, Huda. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much. Good morning. Many thanks, Ambassador Novello, for this very good set the scene. So the set the scene is already done. So let me just say how proud we are as OMEC to partner with WEC Italy. We have now a cooperation for many years, and this is the first time we cooperate in a document, and this document was awarded, giving also recognition of this lovely and wonderful Mediterranean region. So we are very proud, and congratulations for that. Welcome to Chairman also. Thank you very much for being here with us for this side event to close our work, and for being here all the time. So I'm not going to say a lot, but maybe just 2 words on how this region is important and how is challenging and at the same time interesting to focus on this region. And we will have this session in which we'll go in more in details about this energy transition and the checklist and the outcome. Just to say that few years ago, maybe there is a before COVID and after COVID situation for energy in the Med. Before COVID, what we were contemplating is a more and more divergence between the North and the South Mediterranean countries in terms of the vision on how we tackle the energy and the future, with the European Union and North Mediterranean countries focusing more and more on fighting climate change and greening everything, and banning gas, banning whatever, everything had to be green and everything had to be clean. Whether the South Mediterranean countries were very much focused on energy security. So talking to them about climate change, yes, they will hear you, but the focus was much more on energy security. And all of a sudden, we had been contemplating the COVID period, and after the COVID period, the crisis that we are still facing, And this made some convergence, which we have been contemplating as well. Even the climate change issues that happened in the region north and south. And all of a sudden, we see that from the North Mediterranean countries and Europe, we come back to the energy security and we look at the different energies in a different way. And at the same time, the South Mediterranean countries, which were facing problems with the climate change, recognize that they need also to accelerate the energy transition to fight both the climate change issue and the energy security. And this gives some convergence, which is positive by the end of the day, in terms of the vision that we may have in order to fight both climate change and energy security, and putting indeed energy in the heart of the socio-economic development of the countries. Now, what we will contemplate also in the future is that the main issues are going to happen in the South Mediterranean countries, because we are starting from a situation when the energy demand, when we look at different indicators by capita in terms of access to energy, access to electricity, CO2 emissions, we are at the levels which are much lower in the South Mediterranean countries than in the North. And at the same time, population is going to grow there, and economic growth is going to happen in the South Mediterranean countries. So we will need more and more and more and more energies in order to fuel this population to come. This is more than 135 million people that will come in this region between today and 2050, whether in the North Mediterranean countries, we will reduce our population by 14 million. So we will discuss later on how this energy transition would look like. For sure, it is a palette of different technologies, where energy efficiency first, renewable energies, of course, but we need all technologies, all colors in order to reach a successful energy transition or transitions in the Mediterranean region. But I'm not going to spoil what will be discussed, just again to say how proud we are about this cooperation, that we are very keen to continue, very happy to organize jointly with WEC Italy this event today, and we look forward to a successful discussion. And thank you for all those who have joined us today. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Uda. Thank you also for introduced Michael Howard, the chair of World Energy Council, that is with us this morning. So Mike will give an address at the end of this meeting. So I give the floor to Stefano Besseghini, chairman of Italian Energy Authority. Stefano, can you hear us?
Yes, I hear you very well. I hope you hear me well as well.
Yes, and
Okay.
I only highlight that you have the role of chairman of ARERA, but you have also a role in the Mediterranean Energy Regulators organization. So you can give us a very in-depth overview on what regulation can deliver or can provide for the energy transition in that region.
Yes, thanks. Thank you, Paolo, for sure for this invitation. I really appreciate it. I have, of course, to apologize at least twice. The first time because I'm not able to be there with you. And the second one because in a while I have to leave you because I have the board meeting this morning. So that's the real reason for being here in Italy. First of all, let me appreciate really the introduction made by Ambassador Novello, because really gathered in a bunch of considerations, a lot of topics, a lot of hints that are useful for our discussion. And I would like only remind one point, that is the TAP relevance, even in the overcome of the energy crisis during this last couple of years. I would remind that our diversification process, which took place in 2022, had a good point in the ability to full operate TAP pipeline connection in order to overcome the difficulties with Russia. Of course, even relevant was the activation of the two regasificator in Piombino and Ravenna, but for sure, this diversification capability of our country was relevant to maybe not overcome safely, but for sure with less damage, this huge energy crisis. Another point, I think I have already appreciated the Trilemma instrument during our last meeting in Rome. And in that case, I made some considerations on the capability of this instrument to synthesize very quickly in a view a lot of relevant information. And I am always convinced that this capability to give a quick flavor of what is going on in the different countries, it's of paramount importance in order to go quickly to the point. So I will try. You remind Paolo that I am permanent vice president of this MedReg association, which is going together in Sicily in June this year with this General Assembly, and it will be the opportunity to gather, I think, 15 or 18 presidents of regulatory authorities, both of European countries and of the Mediterranean non-European countries, which is the main characteristics of this association of regulators. And the attempt is, of course, to try to understand how to manage these transition issues, but not only transitional issues, because as it has been very well reminded just a few moments ago, we have also some social issues, some I would say infrastructural issue from the point of view of the society that are going to change and are going to differentiate the northern part of the Mediterranean area and the south part of the Mediterranean area. Just to come to the, I hope that this dialogue for sure will be able to continue also maybe with your presence in the meeting in Selinunte of MedReg, which could be a good opportunity also to share some views and thoughts with the president of the regulators. In your report, you focus many relevant topics. I would like to underline maybe three, which are I think probably deserve specific attention. The first one, for sure, is this diversification. I had the opportunity, thanks to the introduction of Ambassador Novello, just to remind the relevance of the diversification infrastructure of the infrastructures during the energy crisis. But it's for sure that the diversification is a key point even for the region as a whole. But you know, diversification is one side of the medal. The other side of the medal is cost minimization, because of course, anytime you're talking about infrastructure, you're talking about the capability to improve your possibility and your potential to use different sources or technologies. You must be always very careful with the cost minimization process and understanding properly the cost-benefit analysis of all the choices that they're going to do. And from this point of view, I think that the independent regulation and the regulatory authorities can play a central role in this kind of analysis and in this kind of evaluation and this kind of support even to the governments in order to understand properly the choices that can be underwent. I have usually a kind of slogan that is let's politically define the targets and let the regulators work out the details, which is probably a good approach, because every time you try to fix in a law the details, you in some way place some kind of rigidity in the structure, some kind of rigidity in the system, which regulation can more easily overcome. And moreover, usually the capability of the regulator to be in detail with the companies and with the regulated activities can actually give more flexibility. And I think this diversification and flexibility are two columns on which we must build our capability to move through the transition with the expected speed and effectiveness. Every kind of stranded cost, every kind of stranded regulation, every kind of stranded law is something hindering the process of transition. The second key point, I think, is about the risk of raw material supply that you pointed out in the report. This is, I think, as well is a very relevant point, not only because of the geological distribution of the materials or the relevance of the different economies. We all know about this. I think that you answer to this risk of monopolism on raw materials with different instruments, and one for sure is research, because all the activities that are related to distributed generation and to renewable generation are deeply dependent on material research. Just take care of the basic of photovoltaic process. It's based on silicon, it's based on the capability of silicon to increase its efficiency in energy conversion. And the deep research done in the electronic sector for sure benefited the capability of this material to exploit completely this production technology. But just think about superconductivity, thermal materials, phase change materials. I mean, you have really a huge number of examples in which material engineering is key, central in developing new opportunities for this effort of the transition. And this is also an opportunity to try to overcome some material lock-in that we can experience. You know, there is a lot of research on batteries, electrochemical storage is for sure central. Lithium is now the king of the technology, but you know that we can also exploit the diversification in this area. Sodium batteries, high batteries, you have not many, but relevant technologies that can compete with lithium with less critical raw material issues and even less environmental problems. And let me finish, because I am afraid I'm taking also too much time with the third point. You talk about in your report about energy efficiency. Okay, to speak bad of energy efficiency is like to speak bad of the mother. So it's not of course, it's obvious that you need to consider energy efficiency as the key building block by which you have to start any kind of evaluation on energy transition or development. But let me give you just an attempt to have a different point of view, which is energy efficiency for sure means to do better with the same amount of energy. But we must be able also to think a little bit out of the box on the capability to use the energy directly for some kind of use. And the main example that I think it's relevant for the Mediterranean for me is the solar cooling processes. Because I am convinced that in higher radiation areas like the Mediterranean, the capability to go directly from heat to cooling devices is relevant and could be exploited more deeply in order to avoid the transition through the electric conversion and back to the cooling devices. We know we have technologies in order to explore the solar cooling approach. We have the capability to be in phase with solar radiation and the need for the energy for cooling. So I think these are the kind of approaches that we should try to study a little bit more in detail, but not only study, even develop and develop at the industrial level with the proper level of optimization and cost reduction that comes out from scaling up the solutions. So just to give my 2 cents actually of thoughts about the relevant work that you are doing, and I hope we can continue with this dialogue. We can increase the collaboration with the regulators and with the MEDREG association. And for sure, you know, you will have always in our era specific contributors on these topics because we have discovered Mediterranean a little bit in advance respect to these times. Thank you very much and good work and good day.
Thank you, Chairman Besseghini. Thank you for your time and also for providing us always also an in-depth on research potential and also activities that the research can deliver. So thank you. We'll let you go. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Now we enter in the presentation of the energy transition checklist. That is the document that was addressed by the ambassador and Chairman Besseghini. First, I will add one thing. This document was a collaboration between the London Secretariat, the WEC as partner, technical partner, and with a very important contribution from companies that are the backbone of national committees. Together with us, we have 2 of the 3 expert contributors that helped us to produce and also to have an in-depth analysis on energy transition checklist. So let me thank also to Edison for collaborating with us in organizing this meeting, and also SNAM with Valeria Palmisano that is together with us today. And so I will give you the floor after for presenting what the energy transition checklist has produced. Before, we will have an address from the chair of regional initiatives of the World Energy Council. I thank Burkhard for staying with us this morning. So Burkhard, you will introduce us from a point of view of WEC and energy trilemma, what the Mediterranean looks like, or what is our vision on the Mediterranean, and also how our activities are relevant for the World Energy Council. And then we will go down deep in the energy transition checklist with a few data from WEC and from the expert contributors. So the floor is yours, Burkhard. Yeah. Right. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Paolo. Just a comprehensive and step back for a moment and just to consider what makes WEC special. In my eyes, first, we are really an independent global network of all energy-related groups. So we are not just oil and gas industry. We are not just electricity. We are not just politicians fight for net zero emissions in 2040 or 2038 or whatever. We have governments, we have academia, we have energy companies, but also energy consuming industries. We have FELS, we have all parties and all stakeholder is not the best word for it, but all related parties to energy at the table and from all regions. Very different challenges, starting point, situation, and resulting from this, priorities and solutions. And if you just sit together, for example, with your industrial association, then you can put through a certain industrial target or a political goal and try to pursue it. Here it is completely different. We are here to learn, we are open, and we want to understand different situations, different starting points. In my eyes and in my experience also, it makes by far more resilient, and I think it's by far more important than it has been before. If I look back and look what our strategy maybe in the country, but also in the company or in the branch was, we were so wrong always. And we always expected the future to be very precisely in a certain way that we want and that we deserve. but it materializes completely different. And therefore, I think it's absolutely crucial to sit together, to meet together in an open way, not in biased try to get something through, but open, understand. This is the independence. The second thing is we are a member organization. So there is not the global secretariat delivering services and managing everything around. And we are also not a franchise system. Every member committee is an own network with own activities, and as Paolo just mentioned, with very strong members, companies within their own network being active and trying to find approaches and solutions for different topics. We've heard a lot about connecting the dots, and this means in these days energy transition. Very important that we also connect the dots between Global Secretariat and the member organization and the member committees that we have. And there are different ways. One example, the German member committee has made a survey every second year, and they ask across the global network, what is your perception of the German energy transition? And so it's quite easy. It's very useful from a German perspective to understand what the different perceptions are. And it's very easy to get it because you can use and utilize the network that we have by just asking around. You are connected, you know each other. And this is not something given or not the idea of the Global Secretariat. It was just an attempt and just a very positive and very well recognized and published result coming from this. I don't want to go to the results, but just to show how to work together. A different possibility and even stronger and even quite new is a cross-member cooperation. And you cannot put this top down. You cannot say these regions should have the same problems or should now organize in a certain way. It is bottom up. Some countries meet, some member committees meet and consider that they have a crucial topic, that they have a certain interest, that they work together on a certain topic. And I think the cross-Mediterranean cooperation is a very good one. And I think it's very welcomed that it was awarded on Sunday evening. And this is really, it's not so easy. It's not just one topic like this country wants to sell hydrogen, this country wants to import hydrogen. Okay, let's negotiate. It is here to understand, to find common ground and to think commonly about things. And this let me now come to the transition checklist, or also the trilemma, which is mentioned in the transition checklist. And let me also reflect a bit on the trilemma. I have been in Malta, also in the Mediterranean area, with a small delegation when we tried to convince them to become a member committee in the World Energy Council. And they were very interested on the trilemma. And they were a bit struggling with the rank that they have seen, how bad the rank in the trilemma index was. But then we looked a bit deeper and understood that there are not many countries that are an island themselves. Others have islands in their country. But if you have just one trilemma index, one member committee as an island, and if you compare those, you find strong similarities. A very special situation when it comes to energy security, for example. Therefore, it is important not to look at the rank, not to look at the result, not to look at the table. It is definitely not like Serie A, Inter is number one, so they are better than Milan. It is not so simple. We cannot just collect and count goals. The trilemma has 3 dimensions, and each dimension a lot of categories. And this means it cannot be objective. It cannot be wrong or right. It is just an analysis, and you need to step a bit deeper into it. You need to read and to understand, and also maybe, like the Baltic did in a cooperation, to adapt, to say, for us in our region, the question of access to energy is not so important than in other regions across the globe. For us, other certain things maybe are more important, or we need to look a bit different on these. And they adapted the trilemma for their needs in the Baltic region. Also a very good example. So, and the rank, as I mentioned, with Inter in Milan is definitely not so helpful. I'm coming from Germany. Our rank is, due to the heritage, due to the legacy, very high, but it does not really show the challenges and the problems that we are in. If you read the text, if you read the narrative in between, already 2019, it was clearly mentioned, apart from the fact that we were number 7 on the rank globally, but it was mentioned that we are very dependent on Russian gas and that we have not competitive energy prices. And this materialized, unfortunately. The energy crisis had a strong and severe result in all aspects of the trilemma for all countries. So if you look for a development in a certain country, as I've seen here also in Europe, Mediterranean trilemma index, and if you see that energy security raises in the north from 58 2020 to 64 2022, and more than in the south, but in the south, the energy equity dropped more. You need to read, you need to translate this. And this is somehow also related, not only to blame ourselves, but when we need to buy gas, LNG, almost whatever it takes, because in the Western Europe, we were very much dependent on gas, on Russian gas. And when it was short, we needed to buy LNG, whatever it takes. And this is missing in some other parts of the world. Therefore, if you in the energy equity have a drop, it is not that your region failed in some respects, but you need to understand, you need to translate. This is my my recommendation, not to stick to a table. It's not a round championship. It is a tool, as the ambassador absolutely correctly mentioned. It is a tool and it's an instrument to work with. And therefore, I find the regional initiative Mediterranean very complex region, very different starting points, a small inside, very promising. And liked very much being in Rome some weeks ago and to sit together and work together and to learn what different and similar interests and approaches are. And I'm very welcoming being here and sitting together with you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Burkhard. Thank you. Okay, now I'll go. We will go in depth in the energy transition checklist, starting from setting the scene on the data that we have today on the Mediterranean area, with Matteo Urbani, senior analyst from Mediterranean Organization of Energy and Climate. So please, Matteo, if we can stay in 5-7 minutes to have few snapshots on what energy demand and balance today means in the Mediterranean area.
Hello? Okay, great. So good morning, Ambassador Novello. Good morning to the dear friends of WEC, particularly of WEC Italy, and a good morning to the friends of Edison. So I will do my best to be short. Some data about our flagship publication that we officially presented in Dubai during the last COP28, and our energy perspectives regarding the energy future in the Mediterranean area. To go straight to the point, to mitigate the further impact on climate, CO2 emission will need to reach net zero around mid-century. Which means that according to our perspectives, our study, for the Mediterranean region, this means reducing carbon emission nearly tenfold by 2050, from 2,000 million tons presently to under 300 million tons in 2 decades. So this is a very big challenge, as current trends indicate a projected 19% increase in emissions by 2050, of which 63% in the south shore of the Mediterranean region, while the goal is to reduce actual regional emissions by 89%, so a huge challenge. As you can see, energy efficiency and renewables will be the major drivers of this energy-related carbon emission reduction. But it's important to underline that to full decarbonization, to reach a full decarbonization, we need all the low carbon technologies, including green gases and CCS, and not forgetting also the contribution of nuclear energy. Regarding the energy demand, the energy demand is expected to increase by 43%. Is increased 43%. During the last 3 decades, and if we follow the current trends, the increase in the next decades will be around 30% until the mid-century. To achieve the net zero carbon future, the total energy demand of the Mediterranean region should be reduced by 20%. This is something that we can't do in a day, especially considering the increase in population, a demographic explosion concentrated in the south shore of the Mediterranean. We talk about an under 30 million people additional until the mid-century, with a doubling in the GDP. So in the economic growth and the demographic growth will be very important in the region, and mainly concentrated in the south. The energy landscape is a bit contrasted if we look at the entire region, because the energy demand is declining in the north, mainly for 3 reasons. The implementation of energy efficiency measures, atonic demographic growth. There is no demographic growth in the north, and the expectation are quite flat. and a reduction in a recent reduction in the industrial activity. On the contrary, on the other side of the basin, energy demand is expected to increase alongside population and economic growth. To achieve the carbon neutrality by 2050, the north side of the basin will need to further reduce energy demand by 37%, and the south shore should limit the increase to 6%. But it's not just the level of the energy demand that should be brought down. The fuel mix has to change drastically as well. Today, fossil fuels account for 75% of the energy mix, and renewable energy, although fast increasing in the last decade, especially, stand at only 13% of the total Mediterranean energy demand. In 2030, even if all the NDCs are reached, fossil fuels will still account for around 70%, especially due to the inertia of transport in industrial demand. So in a net zero carbon future, the expected energy mix will need to be around 60% of renewables, 64% in the north, and around 55% in the south, 15% of nuclear energy, and 26% of fossil fuels, of which 23% of gas, which is the least carbon emitter, and is definitely the transition fossil fuel that will play a role mainly in the power generation and in the industrial sector. The change in the energy mix, in the decrease in energy demand overall, will be driven substantially by the electrification of the economy, and electricity, which accounts today for around 60% of total final consumption, will have to reach by 2050 around more than 60%. Today, the Mediterranean region, this is a snapshot of energy data emerged from our analysis. There is one important point that we stress in our studies. Today, the Mediterranean is exposed to multiple crises, and the region is a danger of a huge energy dependence on fossil fuels. Under current trends, Mediterranean energy imports would increase by 12% to reach around 18,000 petajoule in 2050. And a net zero carbon future would lessen fossil fuel dependence. According to our perspectives, by 2030, fossil fuel imports would be more than halved, and the region would become a net exporter, according to our ProMed scenario, the most ambitious scenario, driven by increasing export in the South Mediterranean. We stress.
Matteo,
Yes.
1 minute. 1 minute.
1 minute. Okay, great. So just to point that I would like to stress that the electrification means transmission. So I would like to stress that with no transition without transmission. So to electrify, we need to invest a lot in infrastructure, in renewables, in energy efficiency, and in all the other low carbon technologies. Just some data about the cost of this net zero carbon future that we would like to attain as a target. We estimated a mobilization of substantial resources between 4 and 7 trillion euros, depending on the scenario, which means around 140 to 2050 billion per year. And so to do that, we need to mobilize resources. And so the crucial question is how to finance this transition. And to do that, we need enabling frameworks, which means a clear policy direction by governments, a stable regulatory framework for investors, international contribution from the multilateral development banks, for example, to increase guarantees for investors is important, especially for the South, the access to finance, because the amount of investment is huge. And so the access to finance we need to guarantee this access, otherwise it could be impossible to. Of course, in this context, as we do every day, the promotion of dialogue and cooperation between countries is the conditio sine qua non to reach this ambitious objective. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Matteo. Very, very useful presentation, as it was also for our exercise during this month. Now we go to the transition checklist that was also addressed before. And I introduce Igor Malgieri, that is one of the expert contributors that have produced it, or better managed it.
Grazie Paolo, and thanks everyone for being here, Chairman Howard, Ambassador Novello, and I mean like all the other friends of the World Energy Council. I mean, actually, also for me, it's a great pleasure being here, and especially as being a great pleasure being part of the exercise. I mean, like we heard it like many times before during this Congress, but also from Mr. Buckward before. I mean, there are many different transitions, and I mean, we hear it also like confronting. I mean, I'm also one of the future energy leaders, and I mean, I have the chance to confront with the other fellow colleagues of the WEC. And I mean, we really have different perspectives and different challenges, different starting points. But I mean, we need to break it through. I mean, like we need to look at the carbon challenge as a great global challenge. But I mean, at the end, we need to also take it down to practical steps. And I mean, break it down like in a regional effort. It was, I get one of the great ideas. It has, as I said, like a great journey, but also like quite difficult, because I mean, the first thing that we realized, it was like the lack of clear common goals, because of the different needs, as I said. But I think it's also like the force of these exercises. So I mean, like I take the chance that there is also the Secretary General. Maybe we can make it cyclical, not a one-time exercise. But let's see how it goes. As we heard from Matteo, thanks for setting the scene and to giving us some of the numbers. I mean, like the challenges are gonna be massive, and also like the world that we're going to face is going to change. And Matteo before was talking about like just in the south, like 130 million people, if I'm right, and like doubling the gross domestic production. But the most pressing need for us is to like find a convergency between like this need of decarbonization, but also like the need of protecting like the socioeconomic growth of these countries. Because I mean, for as much as we want to cut the emissions, we also like need to feed these and to fuel these growing economies, especially in the South Shore of the Mediterranean. So one of the first priorities that we found in this checklist that we have drafted In this exercise, it was like to diversify the sources and the areas of supply. Of course, with a technological neutral approach, first of all, because I mean, like we cannot run the risk of betting all our fishes on one technology. There is, now it's clear there is no silver bullet, green silver bullet. So we need to look at the different kind of technological approaches, but also, I mean, like to start to invest in the technologies that are at our disposal now to start to limit the emissions from day one, actually from yesterday, if it was possible. Because of it's a regional exercise, one of the first priorities it was to foster the interconnections, not just like south-north, but also south-south, in order to give the possibilities also to the South-Shores to share the capabilities and also their know-how. In fact, this physical interconnection, it shouldn't be just like for energy transfers, but also for know-how transfers. And this know-how transfer is just not just like technical on how to build pipelines of like power cables, but it's also like in terms of education, regulation, certification, and that's gonna be like one of the frontiers of the international cooperation, especially at the regional level. As we heard before, of course, the renewable energy sources are going to be pivotal. It's going to be like a cornerstone of the transition, but it needs to be coupled with the energy efficiency. And also for the energy efficiency, not just like a matter of investment, but it's also a matter of education. I mean, we need to have also like on the consumption side, as I like to say, like a more illuminated kind of consumption. Of course, we are going to have like the help of many different promising technologies. I mean, like we had a very interesting round of tables in the exercise because, as we mentioned before, it's a multi-stakeholder effort, not just the WEC member committees, but regulatory authorities, industries. So, I mean, we could share and put in common what we know and what we think were our perspectives. Of course, as we heard before, hydrogen is going to have a great role, both in the south and both in the north, especially like connecting the two shores and leveraging the current transport capacity, but also like building new possible connections where available and where needed. Biogases, of course, also are going to be crucial in the energy transition processes, giving a sense of circularity also to the effort. Relying on the biomasses, but what I would like to stress, I mean, I know, Paolo, that I don't have like much more time left.
Yeah.
3
minutes.
2 minutes?
3 minutes.
Ah, wow.
A lot of time.
We can we can proceed on the energy transition in 3 minutes. No, it's the humanizing energy approach of the energy transition, especially because like of the place that we are. I mean, like in the World Energy Congress. I mean, we also need to look at the human perspective of the transition. One of the pillars of the trilemma, together with the security and sustainability, it's accessibility. So we need to make sure that we are going to have like a competitive energy system in the transition process. And it means like to have like for other geographies, maybe it can be like actual access to energy, but I mean, in a region like the Mediterranean, like it's the competitivity of this energy. So that the people are not just like at the bottom of the transition process, but they're active members and they can like feel along this energy process. So I mean, like we need to keep the competitivity of our energy system, of course, with carbon capture unit systems that can update our thermo power plants to ensure our security and stability of the system, but also, for example, like pointing where and when the conditions are available at technological solution. For example, the new nuclear with, for example, like small modular reactors can ensure a solid and decarbonized baseload for our energy systems. I mean, I think time for me to pass it to Valeria to integrate for the checklist. Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure. Thank you, Igor. And also, it is interesting to have some insight from Valeria that conducted jointly this exercise. Please, Valeria.
Thank you, Paolo. Thank you, World Energy Council, WEC Italy, OMEC. Pleasure to have met the ambassador today, and I much appreciated your words. I really like what you said about, the fact that the Mediterranean becomes interesting to observe also for other parts of the world. What can I say? I will probably stick to the bright side of the checklist because one of the conclusions was that for every challenge that we have identified in the area, there is also room for opportunities. And let me say, this happens at a particular time. So the big value that I personally attach to this exercise is that it's quite timely. Meaning that for at least the part of the Mediterranean that we call Europe, we are at a very particular moment where we are about to prepare a new institutional cycle. So these reflections become pressures also for the European agenda and for the way we interact with this region. And of course, whenever we talk about the challenge of investing massively in renewable capacity, in developing infrastructures. Of course, the challenges are visible to everyone because there are constraints in the access to capital, the consequences for the public finance and public budgets by the time we phase out hydrocarbons are delicate and articulated. But let me say, this is also an important trigger to start a reflection that can be in the policy arena, that can be with regulators, as we understood also from the chairman of our regulatory authority, and with stakeholders, because maybe together with the hardware part, meaning looking at the technologies, the solutions, the infrastructures, but there is a software part that must evolve, that looks at economic models, that looks at financing schemes. We have put an accent on this precisely in the conclusions, because the landscape has changed, will change, and also the software part accompanying this needs to adapt accordingly, possibly with innovative solutions that can offer a good edge for speeding up some evolutions. And this, of course, can have a tremendous favorable impact also when we talk about the social acceptance. There's a lot of talk about the NIMBY syndrome that as infrastructure operators we experience on say a daily basis, but precisely because the infrastructures are something physical that enters physical in the space of the communities, and then there is a lot of dialogue that is always important to have to explain the benefits of that infrastructure. But let's imagine some less visible, we can call it a NIMPO, not in my pockets syndrome. I mean, it's things that we have to keep in mind. Just to conclude, to leave an image on the table that is probably more effective for our part, but a lot of initiatives were mentioned by the ambassador who had the occasion to accompany the initiatives from the Trans-Adriatic Pipeline to the South H2 corridor, the Ravenna project for CCS, that for us represent the opportunity to develop also CCS solutions for the Mediterranean. Is the only project in the South so far. But let me say, as infrastructure operators, we are in between the two worlds. I always like to stress this. We connect the world the consumers, with the word of the producers. It's a connection, speaking about connecting the dots, that for us is a value, because it also puts us in the nice position to become cultural mediators between the two words, gather the needs that we get from both parts, and offer a solution that can accommodate both in the most cost efficient way. So other than continuing ensuring the security of supply, that for us it's always been important, preparing our infrastructures to accommodate the new vectors and molecules of the future. But let me say, it's a privilege per se to be in this position and to be in contact with these two words. For the rest, I was really happy to taking part to this exercise. It was really precious, and look forward to continuing this discussion. Thank you all again.
Thank you, Valeria. Obviously, we will circulate the final version of Energy Transition, the document that you have produced. So thank you again for your collaboration that will not finish in 2024. I'm sorry to say that we have to continue. I want only to pick one point, that is the one of contact with the European Commission. Also in this field, together with OMEC, we have in the past already interacted as World Energy Council and OMEC together on another issue on hydrogen, if you remember, Uda, on the hydrogen issue. And so this exercise is for sure valuable and also useful for future interaction with the European Commission. So we will work also on that, and we will also coordinate with the Vice Chairman for Europe, and obviously with the Global Secretariat. Now, I talked about Global Site and the Global Secretariat. I have the pleasure to introduce Barbara Tarenghi, that is chair of the program committee of the World Energy Council. Barbara has been appointed in this new role, and is also from our constituency, WEC Italy, because has an important role also in Edison. So Barbara, please give us your view on this presentation, and also the issues that the ambassador addressed at the beginning.
Thank you, Paolo. First of all, congratulations for the award that WEC International recognized to this initiative that, in fact, I think is absolutely relevant. And if I would have to summarize in a word, or maybe in a sentence, what I perceive of this initiative is that it's a very, I would say, powerful platform to convene and also to act or make things happen. So, and the confirmation of this is that you were saying that this is just the beginning, if I well understood, and that this is a sort of meeting or platform that will develop its effect in the time, and I'm sure it will do. I have some, I would say, few remarks also, because the time is short. The first remark is regarding the methodology you used for this initiative, that for me is quite interesting. I took some notes. I wrote complementarity among OMEC, WEC, and also companies. This is, in my opinion, something quite important, because the view that is emerging from this exercise is quite complete and very exhaustive, and I would say also not so theoretical, so something quite practical and useful to act. That is our aim, I think, altogether. The second element of method that I would like to underline is the bottom-up approach. That is important. Many of these exercises are just top-down. This is a bottom-up, but built on solid methodological framework. We use trilemma And and of course, the OMEC scenarios that are absolutely well based on figures, fact, and evidences, because we don't have to forget reality. Reality is that there are different trends in this country. Some of these countries are tremendously growing in terms of population, in terms of development, and other are in a different trajectory. This is an important point, because if our aim is to act, then so make a thing happen, I think that another positive aspect of this initiative has been that there are many focus that are complementary. One is short term, so being quite concrete in exercise regarding energy efficiencies, renewables, things that are already on the scene, but also, and we heard this also maybe from Mr. Beseghini before, not to forget the future, and I would say the medium long term, also in terms of research on material, for example, because we saw that the problem of critical raw material supply is here and is here to stay. Another element of action that is positive, in my opinion, is the word convergence. I heard this word today, and I think this initiative has proved that convergence is possible between many aspects. Uda was speaking about energy security and energy transition. So the fact that two positions so ideological, maybe for a certain point of view, at the proof of fact, are combining in the two different perspectives. The one of, I would say, the European context that is, of course, absolutely obsessed by, I would say, environmental and climate sustainability, and the need of the South to rely on a sustainable and secure base of energy. And this creates also an important complementarity between these two elements. And I think that the checklist was quite good in create alignment on mutual perceptions and underlining which are elements of value to expand value, combining the different trajectories I was mentioning before, North and South in particular. And in this way also giving value to complementarities. So I think that this is in synthesis something really interesting to support for the future. And if you put the attention on also the process used to bring ahead these works, I think that this is an exercise that at the bottom has a sort of concept of humanizing energy, because the main aspect I can see here is people gathered together from very different regions, entities, position, beliefs, perspectives. But the idea to create something common is very powerful. And I think that is at the core of the mission of World Energy Council too. This is the reason why I think that this is the proof that trilemma is something that go not only for singular country, but for and not necessarily region well defined, but can be applied in exercise that can create value at a larger space and larger time span. That is the other elements that this study luckily and give us as a result. So congratulations to all of you, and see you next year for a new release of the document.
Thank you, Barbara. Thank you, Barbara. I only want to pick one point, and then I will give the floor to Mr. Howard. When we started this exercise, Barbara, was also for me surprising how many convergence there were in the Mediterranean area. When we started this exercise was after COVID, and also we had the Green Deal in the northern part of Mediterranean. And my perception was that the Green Deal was aim at something that is very different from the goals that many countries in the southern part of Mediterranean would have set. But in the first meetings appears very clear that there were a lot of items like hydrogen, smart grids, energy efficiency, electromobility, and other issues on which many African countries and also Eastern part and Eastern Mediterranean countries are willing to work together. So I really believe that the power of this exercise and also the continuation of this exercise has to aim to this point, to make the convergence emerge again and again and more clearer, and maybe also act on something that we can do today, and without, as you also outlined it, without to lose the perspective view on what's next after the things that we already can do. There are other things that on which we have to research a lot and develop. So please, Chairman Howard, thank you for staying with us, and the floor is yours for the conclusions.
Okay, well, thank you very much. So, you know, it's difficult to come in to an event like this and try to conclude and summarize some of the key points, but let me just reflect on some things that I heard. First of all, I really thought that Burkhard did a great job of articulating the value of the World Energy Council. So I'm not going to really say much more about that because I'll just be repeating what he already said. But I do want to say congratulations. And I congratulate you on what I call the social cooperation and collaboration of this group. That is really what the World Energy Council stands for. It helps to facilitate and enable this kind of discussion. The alternative, though, is what I refer to as chaotic polarization, isolation, and fragmentation. That is not a world that we want to move into. It's cooperation and collaboration, and that is exactly what I'm seeing here. So I really appreciate that. To solve these difficult problems, we have to cooperate and collaborate together. So thank you. Now, let me kind of throw out a couple of things to think about in terms of an action going forward. This may be getting into the weeds a little bit, but I want to get in the weeds a minute, and then I'm going to pull it back up and ask a question. I think this particular region, this Mediterranean region, one of the areas that you could collaborate on is around the area, let me use the word applied technology and policy. Now, let me describe what's occurring globally right now. There's a tremendous amount of work going on around material science. This energy transition, and we kind of heard it a little bit earlier, is going to really ride on innovation around materials. Everything that we're talking about in this energy transition is going to depend on new and innovative basic science research around materials. That's not what I think this region should be focused on. It should be focused on taking the research, the basic research around materials, and applying it, figuring out a way to use those innovations of basic materials to solve problems. So it's more of the systems approach. Let me explain. In moving forward with this energy transitions, it's going to take a lot of work, for example, in industry, to help industry move from your fossil fuel to renewable technologies and hydrogen. There's a tremendous amount of work that needs to be done. One of the things that this Mediterranean area could do is develop a unique skill set in how to take the work that's already being done in terms of basic science and technology and figure out how to help these companies apply it to achieve net zero. We don't hear enough about how to help these companies figure out the best optimal solution to achieve it. How do you take a cement plant, a steel plant, a plastics plant, and actually incorporate the process, a new process, to get to net zero? That area of expertise is something that this Mediterranean area could really hone in and optimize and be an example through demonstration projects to the world. Okay, now let me jump to another area. I personally think energy security is going to be an area that we're going to quickly address. Now, the reason is that since COVID and since the Russian invasion of Ukraine, there has been a tremendous focus on energy security. I think countries and regions are quickly, and we heard about it today, are quickly going to figure out how to become much more secure in terms of their energy needs. But
Starting now. Please make your way back to the session rooms.
But the one area that needs a lot more attention, and this area could do that, is to focus on energy resiliency. And if there's something that I could say focus more on, is the resiliency side. And by what I mean by that is take a hit and keep on kicking. Yeah. So you're able to develop the energy infrastructure so that you can withstand more and more of these extreme climate events that can impact your energy system. Civil society is not going to put up with disruption like that. People expect their cell phones to be charged. I think going forward, resiliency is going to be very, very important. So those are just a few things that I wanted to throw out. Now, we could go on and discuss this, and I would love to, but I just wanted to throw out a few reflections to think about, and then maybe we can carry it on from there. But, thank you for what you're doing. It's very, very important. And I'm honored that the World Energy Council can help play a small role in convening groups like this to have these very important discussions. And if there's anything I can do, all you got to do is ask. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Howard. We are going to close the meeting, but I only ask the ambassador if you want to give us some reflections in the closing, if you would like. Okay, please, ambassador.
I listened with the greatest attention to all contributions. Very difficult for me, of course, to sum up the take-home contributions, but some words, for instance, the bottom-up approach, which you mentioned, Barbara, very, very important. Valeria, what you're doing in Ravenna also, very important as an example, just to quote a few things. And above all, what our German interlocutor, I don't remember your name, mentioned about the fact that trilemma is in a way, the tip of the iceberg. There are so many categories behind and below it. One of my focus of interest is the usefulness of such models. The old paradox. If we want to have a perfectly accurate geographical map, should be on a scale 1-to-1 and cover completely the Earth. Every map is a simplification of reality. If you have a physical map or a railroad map or a map concerning the dimension of cities and so on, you have different colors, different methodology, and so on. It depends on what you have to reach. And that's something I take on with the greatest interest, because in my humble opinion, your trilemma connecting the different variables is really key, also to circulate these opinions. Point number 7 of the 9 of the organization in Paris was precisely about the set-off between costs and benefits. To reach that, we also need, of course, the involvement of politics and the civil society at large. To do that, clear, readable messages are really important, and the balance between readable, easily comprehensible, and accurate, scientifically sound is a very difficult one to reach. So my impression, my conviction is that today, through your transitional checklist, have achieved both things: to be readable, easily comprehensible, and at the same time, very, very sound. Exactly like our chairman said today in the end, with his passionate appeal to all us to continue working together. So what I'm going to do is to try to liaise with some of you, with your permission, would be really very, very interested. Try to bring it also in my work in the Netherlands. Again, it's a good example of the cooperation with Northern Europe, Southern Europe, with a country in the North Sea, facing the North Sea, and one facing the Mediterranean, as a small example of what we can do all together. And again, I will bring the expertise I gathered today to the organizers of the Trieste Forum in October, and maybe we could think of, why not, presenting also in that arena your remarkable work of today. Thanks a lot.
So thank to your to all the participants also, and see you next year with the new release.